Moving on to the next part of the lesson, we will look at the characteristics and landforms of or along a river. So as you can see, we have the upper course, middle course, and lower course right over here. So what happens is every river goes through these three processes or steps. So we can say every river has these three stages: the upper course, the middle course, and the lower course. So the upper course has higher velocity. That means the water in the upper course has a lot of energy. Velocity is speed. It means that the water is fast, it's flowing fast. That is the upper course, and less volume of water, which means we have little volume of water. Because you see here, compared to this side, this is my lower course, right? And there's more water here compared to what's going on there. So I try to draw diagrams for you guys to make it much more easier for you to understand, but I'm not a very good uh, visual artist, but I try. Well, I used to be some day ago, I guess. Anyways, upper course, yes. So we have different landforms. We have spurs, we have valleys, and we have waterfalls. These are landforms formed at the upper course. So my spurs are those right there, those big jugging mountains there. Those are my spurs. And in between them we have the valleys. And that's where the water is. That's where the water flows, the valleys. Okay? But anyways, you guys do have textbooks, and you can always investigate into that. Always look into your textbooks. Yes. So at the upper course, we have higher velocity and less volume of water, and the landforms formed at the upper course only. You will not find them anywhere else on a river than the upper course. Waterfall, valleys, and spurs. And how are waterfalls formed? Here, the red signifies resistant rock. That means very hard rock that resists the hydraulic and very powerful pressure of water. Now, that results in this water being forced to move over this rock and fall downwards, because according to this theory in geography, hydraulic pressure is very strong. That means water has extremely strong pressure that, according to science, we human beings cannot swim too deep in the ocean or any body of water, because it will the pressure is so much it could um, cause havoc in our ears. It could rip apart, it could break, not break something, but the pressure will be too much on the brain. So water has a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure. So the deeper one goes in water, in an ocean, in any body of water, a lake, a river, it gets very high pressure. The deeper you go, there's more pressure. So water has a lot of pressure, but then you have a rock with much more resistance to that pressure, and so the water will be forced to move over. Okay, so the water will be forced to move over this rock, and that's how it forms a waterfall. Okay, very well. Moving on, we go now from the upper course to the middle course. And in the middle course, we have moderate velocity. That means the speed here is not as high as in the upper course. And of course, we have more water in the middle course compared to the upper course. You see, in the upper course, we have less volume of water. In the middle course, we have more water compared to there, and a moderate velocity. So it's not too high, not too low. It's just in between, middle, in the middle, right? If that makes sense. And the landforms we have are many, but for now I'll focus on meanders. Meanders, as you can see, these are formed by deposition on the inside of a riverbank. So this is the inside of a riverbank. Okay, so let's say this area, that area, this area, that area, that one, that one. That is the inside of a riverbank. All right. And that is where we have our deposition. D for deposition. Okay, so of course, deposition is when the river doesn't have as much energy as it does in the upper course, because it's now in the middle course. So it has moderate velocity, which means the speed is not so much. So because the speed is not so much, the water can now drop certain parts of the load, like stones and sand and rocks. They can be deposited. They can be left, if that's a much more better word, to make it much more easier. They're just left. It's like the load is now heavy because the water is slow, and as a result, we have our deposition. So that's what happens on the inside. On the outside, okay. So let's say that side, perhaps, of the riverbank. Okay, so there we have erosion. So erosion, we know that erosion is, of course, the action of water and wind breaking down rocks, material. That stuff, I believe, we know. Erosion. Good. So with erosion and deposition, these are the two processes that make up a meander, because there is deposition happening inwards, and then outwards there is erosion. It creates now that shape, that that shape, that shape like this. Very, very well. Now we look at the lower course. In the lower course, we have here lower velocity than both parts of the river. Lower velocities. Sorry for the lighting, but I've really tried to adjust here, but this camera is faulty. Okay, but we still have progress anyway, so that's not so bad. Good. So we have the upper course and middle course compared to the lower course. The lower course has a lower velocity but has the most volume of water. As you can see, in the lower course, I have more water compared to both areas. Okay, so that shows us that in the lower course, we have more volume of water, and that means it is a lower velocity and a gentle gradient. Okay, gentle gradient just means that if you compare here, it looks flat, but here it's like a hill. So the gradient at the upper course is steep, very high. That's why the water can fall over like this and form a waterfall. But over here, the water is it's slow because the gradient is flat. So it's flat here. Gentle gradient is flat. A steep gradient will be like this for the waterfall to fall right over instead. Perfect. So with my lower course, we have the oxbow lake formed. How is an oxbow lake formed? We have steps 1 and 2. Steps 1, we already know. D for deposition. So moving in. So more rocks are being deposited, just being dropped and laid within the riverbanks, and so it pushes in. As you see, it's pushing in that river. So it's forcing the river to now flow inwards. And then of course we have erosion, which is now eroding that space. So which means now the water is breaking apart that rock. Okay, so we have a lot of pressure from erosion, hydraulic action, if you would put it. We have now more hydraulic action breaking this space of rocks. Then we have more deposition and more rocks being filled up. As a result, we have now too many rocks being filled up through deposition. And then we have, of course, the erosion which happened here, which resulted now in rocks being deposited here. And now we have a space between this flow of water, which will now be forced to flow that way, and this one is separated, and that's how we have our oxbow lake. So which means this two formed that one because they were separated from this hole by deposition and erosion. Then we have our Oxbow Lake. Very well. I believe we understand much of what I've said.